Welcome, fellow developers, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
Today, we're talking with Osama Dorias. He is the game director at Heartwood Games. Is that correct? Or no, sorry, Osama, what was it?
Loop Games, you got it right. Yeah.
Art Loop Games, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in our live podcast, what we do is we give developers an opportunity to talk with seasoned developers and get their insights on how to break into the industry. So Osama, what are you having for lunch today?
So far, tea. I will be eating some leftovers because we prepared a really big meal for our family who came over on Sunday, and we still have really delicious leftovers from that. I just don't know what's left. Probably some chicken legs. I'll let you know after.
Sounds good. All right. So, would you mind giving us an introduction to your history? Like, I see that you, in your bio, you have a long history of working in AAA, and then in more recent years, you've gotten into more independent projects. Can you give us a origin story of how you got started?
Absolutely. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years now. I think I'm going on 20 in November. And when I started, actually, I started in mobile. I started working at a game loft, and I made a whole bunch of. I don't know if you know what I mean, but when I say dumb phones, like before smartphones, there were these flip phones. This is like
Nokia bricks.
Kyocera's and Nokia's. Exactly, the
Yeah,
bricks, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you want to type C, you do 222. Yes.
That's exactly it. So those were the first games I made. The iPhone wasn't out yet. It wasn't a thing. There were no smartphones when I started making games, and I did that for several years. Released a bunch of those. Afterwards, I went to a company where we made games for airplanes, and I don't mean flight simulators. I mean when you're on an airplane and you're trying to fall asleep and someone's poking the back of your seat. Yeah, that's my fault. I'm sorry. Made a whole bunch of those. And then that actually was a really good job. It was a lot of fun. There's very little pressure there's a lot of pressure that comes with games industry, but not there because when you made a game, it went into next year's catalog. It wasn't like, deadlines that were looming, but it was also kind of a dying industry because more people were bringing their phones on to flights or had other entertainment. So I saw the writing on the wall, and that's when I jumped into AAA. I worked at Ubisoft on For Honor. Then I went indie at a company called Minority, and I worked on a bunch of games, including VR and XR games. Then I went back to AAA at Warner Brothers, where I worked on two big AAA games. And then after that, Unity, where I wasn't even a game designer for a while. Unfortunately, I had a really bad burnout and had to take time to recover, and so needed to do non-game design work while my design part of my brain healed. So I was a senior partner relations manager, which just basically meant don't know what it meant. I did it for 9 months and it was fun, but like I talked to clients and stuff like that. It was like a biz dev role. Then I went to Blizzard and I worked on the unannounced survival game that unfortunately got canceled and everybody on the project got laid off. More recently, I was at Brass Lion for about a year and a half. That, I guess, is on the higher end of AA in terms of scope of project. And now I started my own indie studio for the last 3 months, and we're working on something that we're really excited to announce within hopefully the next few weeks. So that's my professional journey, but I have a whole
Yeah.
bunch of things I did on the side if you want to hear about those.
Please lay it out.
Cool. I also started teaching game design about 12, 13 years ago now. After teaching for a couple of years, I was the lead author on the Independent Game Design Program, which is a program that you're talking about, where the goal of
Yeah.
that program was to teach people how to become independent game designers. So it's not just a game design program. We also taught like basic scripting and basic 3D modeling, business, that kind of thing, marketing, but just intro to all of these things. The intention was to have it be, because there was at the time, and as far as I know, even till now, no such program in any college in the world. as far as I know, that's still the case. Like a multidisciplinary independent game design program at a college level didn't exist, and
Yeah,
so
I
it
do
was a
know that.
challenge.
I do know that at a lot of schools, they're still telling you like what you need to do is specialize and deep dive, and that's how you get the job. But in a lot of cases, the jobs are very difficult to get, and they're highly competitive. And if you want to operate independently, like usually there's like one class that like is a crash course in business basics, and then good luck.
That's exactly it. And to be honest, I was unique in this, but I saw the writing on the wall. The specialization was going too far, and then people were pigeonholing them into specific skills that, if they became obsolete, it was volatile and unsafe. And so I petitioned the college to create this program, and I worked on authoring it and made it tuition free as well, on top of everything, because in Canada that is an option. You just have to work hard to make it a reality. And the reasoning behind it is, the industry is volatile. Nothing is for sure. And I don't want to have people go through this program, learn, and then potentially, depending on what they want to do, start their own thing or find a job in the industry. I don't want them to start off with a bunch of debt. You know, colleges in Canada are more affordable in general than in the States, less so than Europe. Like we're the in betweens. But making it tuition free was really important to me. That's been running for about 10 years now. I ran the program in parallel to having a full-time game design jobs for about 8 of those, and the people have taken over. We've had hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 graduates at this point. Um, and but I also did other types of event organizing. Me and my friend Selim, we started the Montreal Independent Game Festival, which later rebranded, but and shut down, unfortunately, when COVID hit. But it was running for many years. Before that, we also um, did a bunch of workshops and game jams in different capacities. I have been a judge on a lot of, or jury member on a lot of the big video game award things, like the IGFs and the Indiecade and BAFTAs, etc., things like that. I love that. I'm a public speaker. I've given talks in a lot of different contexts. I'm on the GDC advisory board right now. One of the people who decides which game design talks get accepted at GDC, and I mentor first-time speakers in game design to help them, give a good talk at the if it's their first talk. And I am one of the founders of Polaris, the game design retreat, which you mentioned before, where it's a yearly event. This is our fourth year. We're about to go into our fourth year. You could go to polarisgamedesign.com, I think is what it's called. I should know the website address. I don't know. It auto fills in my browser, so I'm not really good at remembering websites. But what we do, it's a game design retreat where we get some of the best game designers in the world to write white papers on game designs over a weekend. And I promise it's a lot more fun than it sounds. And those white papers are just kind of like a bridge between academia and practical game design. Like they're meant to be the topics that are of interest to people working in game design, but from an academic lens, like frameworks and analyses and things like that, like taxonomies of certain things. That the next one is coming up in about a month, so I'm really excited about that, and we get several white papers from each iteration. I think that sums up how who I am and what I've done
That
professionally.
that's fantastic. But one thing that I took away from this is that you are very passionate about games and the creation of games. You don't just accidentally fall into doing all of the things that you've done. Like you have to truly believe in it. That's inspiring. The
It's a double-edged sword,
I
if I'm
actually
perfectly honest, because passion
well,
fuels
you're
us,
good.
but also, makes us exploitable. I did forget one big thing that I did
Yeah,
want to mention. I'm also one of three Habibis on the Habibis podcast. We are three Arab game designers. We drink tea and talk games and culture. Uh, Kind of on a
that's
hiatus now,
cool.
but unintentional. But we're not. We're gonna come back with an episode someday, inshallah. It'll happen.
Are you aware of all of the like? There's a lot of IGDAs that are starting to pop up in the Arab world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm tangentially involved with some of them. So like I've mentored or given talks at some of their events in the past. So yeah, I'm aware of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've met a few of their board members, their leaders, at some of
Yeah.
the global IGDA events. I'm a board member for the Baltimore IGDA, and so we get a chance to like meet each other, and it's amazing what people from all around the world are doing.
Absolutely.
That's
I'm actually the chair of the Muslims and Games IGDA special interest group, so I'm involved with IGDA as well. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Like I forgot to mention a couple of things, but
It sounds like we have one of the same issues where like we keep getting excited and then we just commit ourselves to so many things. And then you
yeah,
mentioned burning out. Like it's like, oh,
yeah.
that sounds great. I'd love to be a part of it. This sounds great too. And then next thing you know, you're you're doing like everything.
Yep. It's hard for me to say no, but I'm trying. I'm trying to be better at it.
Yeah. So I mean, I love the things that you just talked about, like with that Polaris that retreat. Like it. So can you talk a little bit more about that for anyone who's listening, in case they might want to participate into that? Like, how do you get more information on Polaris, and how do you get involved? Are there scholarships? Is there a cost?
So, unfortunately, because of the way that it needs to be, Polaris is actually invite only.
Okay.
We actually vet people from our own networks and trying to expand who have two criteria. One is that they're good designers, but two, that they play well with others, and that's one of the reasons that it is semi-exclusive in that sense. We are trying to expand it, but it only works to a certain number. We are system designers and game designers, and we design things, and these type of events, we're not unique. Think tank type events, it's not unique
Yeah.
to games. Other industries have them. They kind of fall apart after a certain number of people. And we're aware that this is like not the best way to set up a thing and make it exclusive, but at the same time, if it doesn't work with a bigger number, so what we opted to do is we do run Polaris, we do vet people to make sure that it's like a healthy, conducive environment for this, and we're very open to share all the knowledge of how we set it up, what we do it for. It's completely nonprofit. Nobody, like, within every dollar collected from the attendees, we don't always have sponsors or anything like that. It's spent back into the program. Nobody makes money from this. The white papers are shared for free on our website, and people can do whatever they want with them. And if anyone wants to start up their own game design retreat like this, we're more than happy to share all our knowledge and experience so that could happen. It's one of those things that I wish there was another way. But if you open it up and make it big, then it's not what it is anymore. You lose what makes it special and what comes out of it.
I think that that makes a lot of sense though, because you do have to vet for a certain mindset so that you have compatibility in chemistry, and you guys are all aimed at the same end goal,
Yeah, but we have like
and you can
strict
get very
rules.
effective collaboration. Yeah,
Absolutely, but we have strict rules because we do want to not get the same people back in. So we have, like, if you've
yeah,
been invited 2 times in a row, you have to set out one, and we have to make room for new people. And like we have things as designers, and we're always evolving them to make sure that enough, like, more people have a chance to attend, and that it's not always the same people, and that it doesn't, because that's not conducive to good white papers either. If it's always the same people coming back every year, they're going to run out of
yeah.
things, and the dynamics are going to be samey, and it creates, like, we're aware of all these things, and we're constantly reevaluating what it means to run Polaris, and how it needs to change to accommodate the future. But we really just want other people to do the similar events, and we'll be more than happy to help them, because we do think that there's so much more room to explore game design, you know, more deeply like this.
I mean, that's a really cool thought and concept. It's making me think about a project I'm currently working on, and recently we were running into an issue where um, we were creating sprite characters, and the mechanics are kind of like an RTS. So like there's been a back and forth about like the design of the individual sprite, and then how it behaves when it gets grouped up with a bunch of them. Because in an RTS you have lots of units that blob together, and they create these unit mass behaviors, and you have to like work with it with like the visibility of the unit. How do you tell them apart? Like, what's the UX and the player psychology? And like in the discussions of this, we basically come up with dissertations about like, what are the methods that you have to follow, the insights that kind of guide your algorithm of thinking when designing characters and when thinking about how they're going to act in the game in the mechanics compared to just the individual sprite. The artist is actually in the call here with me now. Like that's really interesting. Like, is that the kind of thing you do with your white papers, or
Yes,
what's a good white
absolutely.
paper?
Yeah, I mean, there are I could tell you two that I participated in just to give you an example of what it is. But what you're talking about exactly is a good fit for it, and it could go in many other different directions. One of the ones that I participated in is about a framework for prioritizing game design features. So it's actually somewhere in between a game design white paper and a production white paper, but from a game design lens. If you are prioritizing what features to work on first, how do you know that you're making the right decisions? And the short and long version of it is you put things in two categories, and then the math tells you what you need to de-risk based on what you have a backup plan for, what you have, what is crucial, core mechanics, etc. And this was one of the white papers. This one I had led it, but actually when I came with, I think we should talk about this because this is how I do it. Obviously, other people came up and scrutinized it. That's why it's peer reviewed. And I ended up changing a thing I thought was working really well into something that works way, way, way better through the experience of these other game designers who have, in some cases, more production experience than I do. Another one was initially about how do you create a design document for systems. Systems are very hard to design because they're interconnected and they have a lot of moving parts. And it became more a framework for like organically while we were working on it. It became the pause framework. It's about when you're starting a design document to assess different criteria to figure out even what kind of game design document that you need to make. And it has some things to do with like what is the usage of it, what is the audience, like what is the scope. All of that will determine uh, if the design document has to live for a short period of time, if it needs to be dynamically updated, if it's like all of these things. And then you can actually create a design document that you need in that moment for the project, etc. And we give a bunch of examples from actual games that we shipped, or like this was a design doc we made in this context and this context, explaining the pause framework. So it started off with a different intent, and that happens a lot. But you have like, just if you go on the site and look through the white papers, they're all over the place. Like, there's some of them are just like, if you're designing this type of game, keep these in mind. Others is taxonomy. Like, there are a lot of words that mean the same thing, or some things that don't have a word. How about we explore that and like name things? Because when you name things, they become real. They become real and they become distinct from each other. And others, it's exploration of like real life situations and how they impact games or impact game design. Like colonialism, for example. What does it mean to make a game that is not based around colonialism? Well, the first step is how is colonialism impacting the games that we're making as a concept, because everyone is participating in it in one way or another, or at least is aware of it, especially in the countries that make a lot of games. Things like that. It can go anywhere. But all of these are uh, pragmatic and useful to some designers, not necessarily all of them, because that's just untenable, in a way that a lot of academic white papers are more like interesting but less pragmatic, and that's okay. They have their place, and so this is the hole that we're trying to fill. There was another event that used to do similar things called Project Horseshoe. It was a different format, but there were a lot of similarities between them. We actually had like modeled initially Polaris on Project Horseshoe, because a lot of us were attendees there, and we just redesigned it. But unfortunately, after COVID, just like a lot of different events, Project Horseshoe stopped happening, and it left a huge vacuum. So as far as I know, Polaris is the only game design think tank retreat of its kind. There was one more before, and there's room for a lot more.
That sounds fascinating. Like, I mean, it seems like somebody who is serious about understanding game design, like if they were to see all of these white papers, would just give them tons of insight that are just created through the combined wisdom of a lot of very capable people.
We do our
Wait,
best, but thank you. That's
what
very kind.
becomes? I mean, it sounds fantastic. I want to look through it. It looks like somebody in the chat here linked polarisgamedesign.com. Is that where we can see some of your white
That's right.
papers?
That's exactly right.
All
Thank
right,
you.
yeah. So yeah, so for the audience, go check out polarisgamedesign.com and see that. I'm curious, what happens with these white papers? Like, do they just generally end up getting posted, and then like the world does with it what they want? They're like open source. Do people pick them up and actually like use them and bring them into serious application?
Yes, to both questions. So basically, we do post them publicly. The intention is to give back to the community and spread this knowledge and not just like hoard it. We've had a lot of accounts of people telling us that it's been circulating in different companies, to solve specific problems. I can't talk about them all the time. A lot of them are said in kind of like a friendly way, like, we were struggling with this for so long, and this white paper answered this question or gave us some insight on it. So we do know it has that kind of impact. But also, a lot of the participants, they give talks about the topics of these white papers at different events as well, so for broader visibility. So for example, at GDC last year, there was a learnings from Polaris game design retreat talk that was like micro talks summing up some of the white papers from the year before. In other cases, it's specific talks, specific white papers that become a longer form lecture, like an hour of deep diving into that topic. All of this is encouraged. There was, I think, a failed. I don't know. I shouldn't say that word because I'm not sure. But one of the white papers attempted to become a podcast. I think it was short-lived. I think short-lived is a nicer thing to say than failed. Short-lived podcast on one of them. So the goal is really to have these be a starting point and to start conversations and learnings, and for them to be scrutinized and other people to disagree and come up with counterpoints. But start conversations and share our knowledge.
That is awesome. I'm looking forward to looking into that because like those kinds of breakdowns are for the people who want to seriously understand how to deliberately build the games that they're trying to build. And
Intentionality.
it, and like that pause framework, for example, is how to efficiently harness your bandwidth because it's very easy to create a document that's way too exhaustive before you even know what you have to build. And next thing you know, all of that work is obsolete because as soon as you got to step one, you realized there were changes you had to make. That's
Absolutely. There's a reason a lot of companies moved away from waterfall to agile workflows. I mean, not everyone does it like exactly agile, but still,
yeah,
waterfall doesn't work on big projects. It barely works on the tiniest projects. It's too optimistic. Yeah.
yeah. So that this is great. I do want to talk about that independent game design program that you put
Of course.
together because that in a lot of ways that's what we're trying to achieve here with the Indie Game Academy is we want to bring people in who have the desire to make games and specifically to create their own studios and publish. And so, there's a lot of challenges because, people come in with different skill sets. Some people are just curious. Some people already have a well-established skill set, but maybe it's in another industry and they need to figure out how does that apply to games. So like there's so many different entry points, but at the end of the day, you have to learn to come in and effectively contribute to a project, but also understand the market and and how to coordinate with other people. So I'm curious, like with your perspective, having been in AAA and all of your work with indies, what are some of the most important steps that somebody would want to take if they wanted to go into indie development? And from an educational perspective, like what is something we need to make sure that we're providing that students don't get through our programs without learning this thing?
There are a few things. It's very hard to just say it's this one
Sorry,
thing.
it was a broad question.
No, no, no. Of course, of course. I would say that the probably the most important, or very, very close to. Hi, I'm not. How you doing? Sorry, I'm not supposed to look at chat and respond. Am I? I'm not very professional. Anyway, going back to it, uh, one of the most important things really is the ability to be honest with yourself. Because if you're not able to be honest with yourself, and I'm going to go deeper into it. This sounds like a self-help quote that you find on a poster that is not tangible, but no, there's more to it than that. The main thing is you need to understand what you're good at, what you're not good at yet, and you need to understand, and you need to be always able to scrutinize those skills so that you could improve on them and make them better. It's a double-edged sword because that's where imposter syndrome comes from. When someone joins a group, for example, of indies, and they're collaborating together, generally imposter syndrome is when you look at the things that you're good at and you downplay them. You're like, those things are easy though, because you're good at them. But you look at what other people are better than you at, and you feel lesser than, instead of actually understanding that this is a healthy dynamic and that you're going to be good at some things and less good at others, and really putting yourself in an analytical mind frame. I am not trained to be a producer in any which way, but every single context I'm in, when I see something going well, I study it. I analyze why it's going well, and I try to extract lessons from it, and I put them in a framework, and I'm try to follow up to see if my assumptions are true or false. And then all of a sudden, the next thing I know how to be a producer. I'm not going to be as good as the best producer in the world, but I've taught myself how to do this. When I go to
Burrito
video game
principle, right?
conferences, yeah, like just understand what you're good at and what you're not good at, and whenever you're good at something, reevaluate it all the time. You're just going to get better across the board. When I go to conferences, I don't just go to game design talks. I go to any kind of talk that is interesting, and what I've learned is I learn about 10% of the content of a talk regardless. So if I go to a game design talk, generally I know 90% of the subject, and there's the 10% that I've never heard before. But if I go to a programming or art talk, I might know 5, 10% of the subject. I'll learn 10 and I won't be able to understand or absorb the rest. But that 10 will set me up so that when I go to the next one that is similar, I have a foundation now. I've heard those words, I know what they are. And this helps indies more than anyone else, but everyone really, because even if you don't have deep knowledge of a thing, learning about anything helps you at the very least communicate with other people who know this thing. So if you look at, like, for example, the Dunning-Kruger, the effect or the chart, the less you know about something, the more you think you know about it. The more you learn about it, the more you realize you know very little, and then you start like going to the bottom, and you're like, oh, I know nothing about this, and then eventually you go back up. But when you go back up and you gain mastery of a thing, there you go. Thank you. Honestly, this helper in the chat, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Petunio. Thank you. You've been wonderful. But look at that. Look at that chart right now. The the more you learn about something initially, the valley of despair is exactly where you'll be living. We're like, I'm so terrible at this. When you're there, know that this is imposter syndrome. And it's a good thing, because that means you're able to look at a thing and understand what you're good at and know what's ahead. Without this, you're never going to climb back up. If you're at the top of the peak and you don't make it down, you already think you know everything. So you don't have the capacity to get better at something. So, like, this is really what it is. Is like, take it in, be honest with yourself. This is what I'm good at. This is not what my strength. Listen to the people who have it as a strength. Be open-minded about what you can learn from them, even if it's not your discipline. And you're just going to be better across the board in whatever it is that you want to do. A programmer can learn from an artist. An artist can learn from a designer. Designer can learn from a marketing person. Everyone can learn from QA. Like, everybody has something that they could teach you. They're going to be better than you at some things, and it takes a village to make a game. Yeah.
What I'm taking away from that is you need to have a healthy balance of humility and confidence, be willing to go into spaces and be okay with being a beginner at something, and learning enough to communicate with people who know what they're talking about and be able to recognize that they know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. So was that one of the biggest things to understand as an indie developer when you're collaborating with others?
When you're collaborating with others, yes. If you have a more like specific question, I'd be more than happy to dig in more. But like that was broad, so I answered
Yeah,
broadly. But
I mean that was brilliant generalized advice that anybody is going to benefit from. So I've taken up a lot of your time. I'm gonna do one more final follow up, and then we can move into community questions. I'll remind everyone here who's live with us to post questions for Osama. He's clearly filled with a ton of insight. Like, ask away and mark your questions with a Q in chat. So the last thing is to help us as IGA. I'm going to ask on behalf of IGA. Like, if we want to bring people in and get them ready to be independent game developers, if there was one thing that was absolutely essential for us to make sure people take away from our programs, what is it?
So when you say make them like you're cross discipline. You're not a specific discipline. Just to ask the question back to make sure I understand. So you're not all
So
designers, or you're not. Yeah.
no, we have people who are engineers, people who are designers, people who are musicians and artists and writers. We have some people who are interested in marketing. It's kind of the spread of all of the different disciplines, and we're trying to form like get people equipped with skills and then form them into teams that will
Okay.
succeed. So
Okay. So
that's
if
the background.
you're forming them into a team. Sorry if I'm digging in on your question, just to understand, because like this can go in so many different directions.
Yeah.
So they're not looking for jobs at indies; they are forming teams. Is the question more about what projects that they should be looking to be making, or what to watch out for when they're joining the teams? Because all of these are, I can go in completely different directions. If you're able to give me a little bit more, what is a through line that would be useful to the group, I would be more than happy to dig in there.
Oh man. So I mean, there's value to both of those because if you don't pick the right project, then you know you're not even moving in the right direction. But if you don't pick the right teammates, then you know it doesn't matter what project you're working on, it's not going to achieve its potential.
That's exactly it. Okay, so I'll give an answer that answers both of these if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so all of this, basically, what you want to do is as much as possible. And the assumption I'm making here is that this is a commercial project. If it's not a commercial project, of course, it doesn't apply, or it doesn't apply in the same way. If you're looking to make a commercial project, what you need to do is take inventory of your team, what your strong points are, what your weak points are, and what you're able to accomplish realistically, uh, and then scope that, half it. So that's part of it. Really, part of it is be honest. Like, if you don't have someone who could do a thing, expecting that person to learn it for that one project is a cost. One thing per person, reasonable. 10 things on one person, the chances of success drop tremendously. Instead, what are you already good at? What can you build with this? And on the other side of it, like, again, this, we're talking about a commercial project, right? There are three things that generally anyone who funds a project or looks for. And I'm not saying that even if you don't want to fund a project, even if you're not looking for a publisher, it still applies, because if they're looking for it, there's a reason that they're looking for it, right? Because these are the three metrics of success. One, is this project worth making? And what I mean by that could be a lot of different things. But one of the main things is, did someone already make this? Is really the biggest thing. If you're making another this, but it doesn't stand out in any way, another puzzle platformer, another card game, another whatever. And I'm not saying you can't make an interesting one of those. I mean, another one of those where there's no qualifier that you could add to it where it stands out. Then it's very hard to show the value proposition to the player, to a publisher, to whatever. The other thing is, okay, fine. This is worth making because there's nothing like it. Is there a market for it? And you have to prove that there are clients. They say there's only one thing you need to start a business, and it's not branding, and it's not money, and it's someone willing to buy something from you is a business. If you have that, then you have a business. It might not be successful, etc., but at least that is a business. Everything else is an idea. It's work in progress. So once you figure out, what are things that are worth making, and you do enough evaluation, because you're like, hey, this is interesting gameplay, this is a new angle that nobody have discussed before, great. Is there anyone willing to buy it? And there are different ways to track this, right? There's different way to validate this, but the best way is actually to get it in front of people's faces right away and see how many people are excited. Ask them what they're excited about. Lean into that. Get validation as quickly as possible, right? Nothing beats, hey, there's 10 people lined up who want to buy this from a group of 20. Look how excited they are about it. Like, we really, like, based on this, we're extrapolating. And the third is de-risking it. Is this something your team can build? Those are the three things. So, like, going back to the first one, what can your team build? If you ignore that and you just say, oh, there is a market for a giant MMO that's going to have 1,000 people with this twist that nobody thought of, and you're 3 people in a basement, it's extremely unlikely that you're going to be able to deliver on this, maybe not on your first project. Nick Popovich actually gave a really good GDC talk, I think in 2019, where he talked about how he came up with Slime Rancher. I'm paraphrasing, so maybe I'm getting some of the details wrong, but the spirit of it was he had 2 criteria. One is the inspiration from Calvin and Hobbes, where they invented their own sport and they're the best players of that sport in the game and in the world. So that's is this thing worth making? Right, that is the same thing. Like if you're the only slime ranching game in town, then no one's comparing you to other slime ranching game. And the other is they took an assessment or inventory of what their team can do. They had one person who had worked on first person shooters before, one person who was a systems designer, and one artist who didn't know how to animate limbs. And if you put that together, you get a first person shooter in a farming sim with slime that don't have limbs. It's literally they made the game that they had the skill set to make that nobody had made before. This is applied theory. This is looking at the 3 things that publishers ask and seeing a team who leaned into these things. So more anyway, I could have answered this in 100 different directions. This is a broad question, but I'm trying to answer something that is as applicable to the most people as possible. So I hope that was helpful.
No, that is very wise. Like don't jump in to build a game that you're not capable of making. Don't build a game that nobody wants. Like that. That's the essence of what I heard there. I think that's
Yeah.
really good advice.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so we're going to jump into community questions. We have a bunch of questions that have popped up in here. I'm going to ask the first one that has the most votes from people via the Q emojis. Then this comes from Joker of Aces, and it has to do with our branded theme for this, which is one of the things that you enjoy doing is providing an opportunity to help marginalized people get their voice out there. So he wants to ask on behalf of that, does this include working with one of the least brought up communities, those with disabilities, mental and physical? He
Does it
also
include
asks,
it?
it also,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. He also asks, it seems like those are the least made character types, especially physical, whether it's medical or injury. I mean, speaking of DEI, these types are rarely mentioned. With that, how do you plan game designs to properly and accurately incorporate them? Like, do you want to speak to this element of marginalized voicing in games?
Yeah, absolutely. To start with love and respect, I actually don't believe that this is something that is being ignored by DEI devs. I like that's not my experience at all. But if it's the case, I apologize if that's how the majority of people feel. But we give a lot of attention to accessibility, a lot. Like and accessibility so that people can play the game. We give a lot of attention to representation of people of all types. Now, what the end result is sometimes different than what we are trying to do. But like the phrasing of it seems like it's saying that a lot of the DEI initiatives are leaving these marginalized groups out. I would push back on saying I didn't see that. Maybe any specific group within, but not as a general broad statement. I myself have ADHD. I speak about it all the time. I give talks about how to design your games with people with ADHD in mind. I care about this a lot. I have very close family members who are on the spectrum. There's a lot of things. This is just me. There are conversations about this. So that's one thing. If you're asking, does it include working with one of the least brought up communities? I've on a personal level, I've worked with a lot of organizations that have done this. That do this kind of work, and I've mentored talks about these subjects that I have invited to give talks at GDC. I'm trying to platform it. I'm not on trial here. I'm not trying to defend myself, but if you're asking, I'm answering. Yeah, this is something I care about a lot. It's just the framing about how if you feel this is the case, I'm sorry that you feel that way, and maybe you're not seeing evidence of it, so maybe we're not doing a good job in general. And I say we broadly because obviously I'm not involved in every DEI initiative or even close. But I've been in those circles, I've been in those discussions, and I've never seen anybody intentionally marginalize anybody with mental or physical disabilities in these groups. These groups have some of the biggest, they care, they have empathy, they're trying their best, they're almost entirely volunteer based, and they work with all of the big groups that do this. So I don't see that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a quick follow up that I'll ask on behalf of Joker. When was the last time you saw a disabled main character with mental or physical disabilities in a game?
Many,
If you
actually.
can think of
I
one.
judge a lot of different games in a lot of different contexts. Like I was talking about the IGF and Indicate and what have you. There are a lot of, if you go to HIO and just search up games that have main characters who have mental illness or disabilities. Just depression. Look up games that have the topic of depression. You will find that. If you're talking about like big AAA commercial games, is that what you're referring to? Because there are other kind of games. We're not just looking at AAA. And yeah, in AAA, this is a problem. I'm not going to deny that. But you didn't mention AAA. You're just mentioning games. If that's the case, then there are a lot of games. We just have to expand where you're looking for these games, right? They do exist.
Thank you for your questions, Joker. Our next question is going to be Petunio. He's been super helpful in the chat here. He has a question that follows up with more about the representation and what helps marginalized people. Petunio, would you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. I just want to know: is there like a small thing that people can do to kind of like jumpstart, giving a voice to the marginalized, which is the topic of the podcast, like a tiny thing that you could do, like just to start.
Absolutely. Basically, I hate giving the "it depends" answer because it depends what you have access to. But since we're talking to indie devs here, it is really, if you have a roster of characters, if you have an RPG with NPCs or anything like that, just look at people within your group of friends, within the people that you have in your family, and just ask them, hey, I want to design a shopkeeper. I would love to have this person, for example, speak with your voice from your position. What would be different? How would you do this? How would you set up their shop? What words would they say? Like, I just get like I'm going small, like on a friends and family, because I know a lot of people like we can't afford to hire sensitivity readers or things like this. Like that's steps. There's steps higher if that require budgets or more time commitment. But you can just source from people you know and platform people with that in the games that you're making if it fits in so many different ways. And one of the easiest ways is when you have a roster of character in any context, you could have people inform those characters instead of only your lived experience. Um, if this was a group of teachers or event organizers, I would give a different answer, because then you can give them a different platform. If this was a group of investors and
Gotcha.
publishers, I'd say fund those people to tell their own stories. Like, everybody can do their part, and their part will look differently one way or the other.
Fantastic. Oh, one last question. On the white papers that were on Polaris, was there one that particularly called your attention? Is there one that you remember, like, still, like, oh man, that was a good white paper there?
Oh, I don't know if I can pick one without getting in trouble with everybody else who submitted white papers. Let me give it some thought. There was one that was very thoughtful. I don't actually. That's the one that became the one I had mentioned a little bit before about colonization, because it is a topic that I had thought of before, but the way it was explored was in ways I hadn't really thought of. Like, a lot of the concept I just took for granted. Some of the obvious examples were just like how 4X games are designed. Yes, that is like, colonization incarnate. But others is just in the way that stories were being told. I would recommend that one heavily because it will really change give you an insight into more subtle details on how the topic of colonization just impacts everybody in very subtle ways. It was very
Was it?
interesting, actually.
Oh, sorry. Was it called Decolonizing Play?
Yes, that's exactly it. I'm
I'll
not
look at
good at
that.
remembering names, but that's the one.
Oh, yeah. Terry, sorry, I interrupted you there. Keep on.
No, that's it. I was just gonna say, it was fascinating to me, actually, in some context where an indie game would come up, and it happened more than one time, where you would describe the game to somebody, and they would say, "Hey, that sounds like it was made by this country or that country because they're from that country." Like, it happened to me twice in like very. One was I think a dodgeball game that was made in Brazil, where I was just talking about it. I didn't even know it was made in Brazil, and a dodgeball academy or something like that. I forget what it was called exactly, or maybe it was volleyball. Sorry, if I'm not good at the details, but what I remember is I was describing the game, and he said that's a very Brazilian, aesthetic, like not just visual aesthetic, but like way to think of games. And I looked it up on my phone because we were sitting together, and I'm like, oh my god, it was made in Brazil. The other time that happened was with I think it was called Loop Hero. Is that the game with the tiles? Um, and it was a similar situation. I was sitting with somebody, and they're like, "Hey, that feels like a very Russian way to think of how stories are told and constructed." And I looked it up, and it turned out to be true. So, like, there are other ways to think of things, but we are generally exposed to just a few, and so a lot of the stories are told in the same forms. And it's interesting to just see how other people who have different experiences come to the same conclusions and design the same type of game in a very different way.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Petunia. I
Perfect.
uh, I love that answer. It kind of reminds me of the Western versus Eastern approach with storytelling and gameplay design, because a lot of times with Western games you'll have something where it's about acquiring the item that gives you the power, but in a lot of Eastern games you'll have that philosophy that your inner power has always been there and you have to unlock it. Like it's something that's been a trend, and it's very interesting to see that. And I'm sure that there are many more paradigms that exist around the world that can inform the way a story is told.
100%. Absolutely.
All right.
Really enjoying these American Japanese baseball player names. I mean, a bunch of Americans do it to Japanese characters as well. Except, if you don't speak Japanese and you're not from that culture, we won't be able to tell. So this is a good, example of this. It was a really good video that someone had made of, like, I forget which country they're from. It was it was Southeast Asia somewhere. And they were talking. This is what Americans sound like if you don't speak English. And they, like, honestly, if you just like weren't paying attention, it sounds like English in the background, but it was just gibberish, and it was like so on point. And it's like it's so telling, because a lot of times when we don't get sensitivity readers, when we're not trying to be authentic, that's how we sound when we try to emulate someone else's lived experience that we're not intimate with, but we just don't know what we're doing, right? So that seeing it thrown back at us, and I'm not American, but like I'm talking about Western, I'm still diaspora here. It's a slap in the face. It really wakes you up.
Excellent. The so our next question is from Wendy. Wendy, would you like to ask your question to someone?
How's it going?
Hi.
We hear you.
Hey, this has been such a great conversation. I got so wrapped into the beginning that forgot the title, topic. So my question is actually back related to the when you were talking about your background in game design and the workshops and other things you've done. I'm an academic, so always and also a lifelong learner. It sounds like you are. So I've just recently finished up IGA's level 3. And one outcome of that was solidifying the idea that I want to know a lot more about game design. So I was wondering whether in general you could give some advice on like picking like a workshop, boot camp, or a 4 credit, degree type of program, or if you have specific ones you could recommend.
I'm sorry, I haven't been in that circle for a while. I've been on sabbatical for a couple of years. I don't know what's out there, so I don't have any specific recommendations for any work, any certification programs for design specifically. I'm very sorry. I wish I had a better answer for that. In general, I feel really the best way, if it's really to learn how to make games, the best way to do it is to have the short cycles, make games yourself, put them outside to outside of your circles for scrutiny. Not like, I know you're an academic, so that might not be what you're looking for, but that is the fastest way to learn how to make good games, is just to do it quickly, fast cycles. Because like game design is a scientific, like as you know, it's a scientific process. You have a hypothesis, you test it out, and then that's how you develop design intuition and get better at it. There is no substitute for just doing it a lot, doing it quickly, and get to the end of that cycle and through as many cycles as possible, as fast as possible. But I'm not answering your question. I'm very sorry about that. I'm not in the know. I haven't been for a while. Yeah.
No, well, that's why I phrased it in both ways. I'm like general
Yeah.
advice or specific, because also some people aren't comfortable, saying, I'm promoting this or that or the other thing. So your answer was perfect. That just make
I
games, like
appreciate
Willem
that.
says, is perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It is the best way. There's no substitute. Thank you.
Yeah, Wendy, my thoughts on that is, if you're looking for something academic, I mean, obviously read those white papers. I'm sure there's gold in there. If you haven't read it, the book The Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell is going to just load you up with all kinds of really amazing insights. And then you just have to get trial by fire. And the way that you do that is you set out to create a specific experience, and like he said, like someone said, you hypothesize. This is the experience I believe that I will get from what I have built, or that I believe the players will get from what I've built. And then you have to get out there and test it. Like find local communities that have play testing events and just put it in front of people and see what happens. The kind of insight you get from the actual experience of watching other people who are not you interact with your game, you will pick that up, and you'll just it will explode you, and you will learn how to develop your own game design without just having to learn about it from others.
I would also
Awesome.
add
Thank you.
there are some really good non-game design books that are just design books that will teach you so much about the design and how to think about it. One of my favorites is called The Design of Everyday Things. And that one is just like, it teaches you just really good best practices for game design that are applicable in any context. And as games become broader and like the definition of what a game is always pushed to its limits, this is going to be useful. Another one is a podcast that I'm very fond of called 99% Invisible, which is a design podcast, but not specifically game design, almost never game design. And it's about the concept that good game design or good design is 99% invisible. You don't notice it. It's the friction that you feel in general. Honestly, you could learn a lot from everything all the time. A designer is everything. It's a lie that a game design is a discipline. It is every discipline. We're like architects because we think of 3D space. We are economists because we balance economies. We're player psychologists because we think of player profiles. We're lawyers because we create rules and laws. We're politicians. We understand how these systems interact with each other. We're like everything. We're everything. Like, so if you're an independent game designer that's more broadly outside of design, then you're incorporating art, you're incorporating tech, you're incorporating so many things. There's nothing you can do that you cannot teach, and that's why that you cannot learn from from so many other disciplines. That's why I was advocating at the beginning, even if your specialty is programming, go to design talks, go to art talks, like go do it. Like everything thing is interconnected. Get that thing that you want to specialize in, that you're deep in because it's your passion. That's fine, but don't stop being a generalist. It's a multiplier that's gonna make you better across the board in anything that you're doing.
A lot of it is like with the design, and even works with engineering, is your mark that you're doing it well is people aren't noticing and commenting on it. They're just feeling and experiencing it, and they've gotten into flow over it. Thank you for your question, Wendy. Osama, we have two more questions lined up. Do you have time to field them?
Can we rapid fire? Because yeah, I mean, I don't have a hard stop,
Okay.
but I am hungry.
Okay. Um, Misha, I will ask your question on behalf of you. How do you create ideas through design while properly combining system and mechanics, say an RPG plus racing, cross-genreing?
An RPG plus? I heard the other one. Sorry, I
Like
missed the other one.
RPG plus racing, like a good way to
Oh,
create ideas through the design.
so I won't say there is one way to do it, but what I'm going to say is, depending on your intent, a very good way to do it would be to study. There's a whole bunch of frameworks that are out there analyzing what types of fun exist and also what type of players enjoy them. And if you want to merge two genres that have nothing to do with each other, like on paper, think about the types of players that overlap with these two and what they're looking for. And I'll give you an example. You can even come up with new player types and new types of fun, and you can make basically a new genre of game that based on that, but do it intentionally. So some people will be like, "Oh, this is a fun game," but fun is not a useful word for game designers because it's too broad. It encompasses so many different types of things that some people actively don't enjoy. You cannot make a game for everyone. It is impossible. Every game that you're making, you're pushing other players away by pulling other players in. That's just natural. So some people like escapism. Some people like achieving things. Some people like griefing other people. And some people, everyone loves a combination of these, and they even rank them differently. So if a game pulls you in one direction, another pulls you in another, but you can actually predict what type of game a player will like based on their catalog of other things that they enjoy. Someone who likes roller coasters is very likely to like a motorcycle racing game because they are a thrill seeker. That is a thing that gives them joy. But that's not the same type of profile as somebody who, for example, likes tactical turn-based combat. So if you think about RPG is very broad. It just basically means a progression system. So instead, what parts of our RPGs are you referring to, and what type of player profiles love those things, and then within racing games, who plays the racing games for those things, and then you'll be able to do something. So then you'll learn, for example, that people who like RPGs, they like maybe power fantasy, and they like progression systems that are deep. Then you could design a racing game that the focus isn't on skill, but it's on upgrading your car with, on a progression curve, so that you're beating people by your intentional choices. It's about making the best car. In a similar way that in RPGs, it's about progressing through numbers. Number goes up. Now you have better handling, better drifting, and a less focus on skill, because that's not the type of player that you're targeting. Then you could make a very interesting racing game RPG combination, and you'll find a target audience for it. Now, is there a big enough target audience for this? That's a different conversation. Remember, is this worth making is the first thing, and then after that is there a target audience for it? That's market research. But you could do that. You could be like, how many people play Forza and Skyrim, and like try to find the overlap between that, and you're like, oh, look, all of this. You can make an assumption, and then the third thing is ask yourself if you have the team to make it. So all of this is tied together. I hope that answered the question semi okay.
I loved that answer. I know that it was an amazing response because it filled my head with ideas what that game could be just with the way you talked it through. I'm imagining like if you've ever seen the movie Alita: Battle Angel, they have that motor ball. So like you could imagine the progression system where you're just playing as motorball and like it's all about winning, getting your credits, and getting upgrades. And I'm just like, yes. So yeah, that I thought that was a wonderful answer.
Thank you.
All
I
right,
think you
last
have a
question
wonderful
here.
T-shirt. I really love the T-Rex T-shirt. It works on so many.
Oh,
It's beautiful. Yeah, love it.
yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, me too.
I
I
love
got I
tea.
got my tea as well.
I
There
got
was
my
another one,
raspberry
I
tea
think.
right here.
There
Yes,
you.
the
Oh,
final
raspberry,
question
fancy.
is from Hamna. You know Hamna.
Oh, I know
Hamna, would
you.
you like
How
to
you
ask
doing?
your
It's
question?
good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thanks for coming on the podcast, guys. I met Osama at GDC and I just like talked until he was like, here's my email. You can email me
That's
or like
not what
connect me on LinkedIn.
happened.
And he was the guy. I'm kidding.
I see how that happened. He's easy to talk to. Very interesting.
No. He was very kind. He was very sharing. I attended his Muslim
appreciate it.
roundtable,
Thank
Muslims
you.
in Gaming roundtable at GDC, and it was actually very informative. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for picking this topic. I think this is the first, in my experience, it might be the first or one of the very few times we're talking about anything marginalized at IJSA in terms of the podcast, to be clear. I don't want to get fired soon. I guess my question is kind of like a serious, boring, long one, but you can give an express answer to it. How do you navigate between being heard, like actually heard with validity of experience, versus being heard because you're the only DEI person in the room? And I say that because most of the times I'm the only person of color, the only female, and mostly the only Muslim person in the room. And then when you put that together, it's like, what do I even do with that? I know I'm there. People are looking at me and people are listening. But most of the times I can tell when the decisions are made I was there as like, oh, we did have one person in the room.
Yep.
So I guess whatever fastest way of answering, if you can even answer that, that's my
I
question.
mean, I don't. To be honest, this is a question I've asked, and I don't know if I have a satisfying answer, but I have one. And the thing is, I think what we're asking of ourselves is we're asking too much of ourselves as marginalized people in different milieus, and we have to really uh, understand context is very important and manage our expectations. That's the truth of it, because we are doing a job that other people are being paid for, and we are given extra work that they don't have. It is more responsibility. And the lower you are in the hierarchy of a company, the less influence and impact you have in the other invisible work. And yet, not there's an expectation we put ourselves in that we're like, oh, but I am speaking. Why am I not being heard? Why I am a failure because I haven't made these changes, and that is just not honest. And like it's a beautiful thought because it means people have good intentions and they want to do good things, but it's not realistic. And so the advice is always take it with a grain of salt. If you're a junior in a big company and your responsibility is to escalate one level higher if you see something wrong. That's it. Beyond that, that's not realistic. Nobody else is expected to escalate higher. Nobody has safety in that position. If they do, the chances of repercussions are too high, and the chances of it making a difference are very low. If you want to, more power to you. Just understand the situation and what it could result in, and learn that yes, we are being exploited. We are being used for for publicity stunt and things like that. That is happening all the time. It doesn't mean that we should abandon, we live in a society, we're trying to make changes, just manage expectations. It's better to stay safe, do as much as you safely can in general, and then climb that hierarchy and have more influence, more actual real decision power with time, instead of burning yourself out with all of these like unrealistic expectations of I need to change this company because I got hired here and I'm the only person who could do this. And that's not realistic. It's not safe, and it's not how these companies are structured. It is, you're setting an impossible goal for yourself. I hate saying this because other people are like, "Oh, you're defeatist." Actually, no. I think we should all be playing the long con. We're bringing positive change a little bit at a time. It's more sustainable. It's more consistent. We don't burn out in the project in the process, and we're sticking around so that we could have more influence later. This is my advice. Of course, everybody can do whatever they're comfortable doing and take the risks that they're comfortable doing, and sometimes they do pay off. I'm not saying it's impossible. Just saying, why would anyone expect that? That's not reality. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, and that
I
is
know you're
actually
unhappy with it. I'm sorry. I'm not like I wish I
not
had a
happy.
secret. Yeah.
No. I actually prefer a realistic, scoped piece of information or feedback compared to you could get the stars. I know I can get the stars. It's a matter of how do I get to getting the stars, and you do need scopable, realistic advice to get there. No one ever told me like, oh, you could do the best. I know I can do the best. That's not the point. So you actually did answer the question pretty well. 10 on 10.
Oh, thank you. I'll take it.
Yeah, it sounds to me like the essence of that is, the people that you're dealing with have a different life experience and a different perspective. And the most realistic approach is to plant the seeds of understanding that grow over time and eventually builds the world that has that expanded understanding.
I like the way you put it. You have a way
Such a
with
kind
words.
answer, Rick. That is such a Rick answer. I feel like you're going to change the world one student at a time. I believe in you, man. You guys are awesome. Thanks. This was wonderful. What the hell?
This has been a really, really great episode. Like, thank you for your question, Hamna. Thank you, Osama. So we have two more things for you. One is to plug anything you would like to plug. And the second would be to offer your homework to all of our community audience members.
I think the plug is already done. Go read the Polaris papers. I think you'll benefit from them, especially if you're more design oriented. But even if not, as we discussed before, even if you're not a designer, go learn design. If you're not an artist, go learn art. Like, learn everything that you can learn. So that's my plug. Go to Polaris's website, read those white papers. For the homework, for those of you who are thinking of a game or who are actively working in the beginning steps of a game, not the end, because if you're working at the end, just finish that game. Like, always wrap it up. You learn a lot from ending it. I would love for you to take some time and evaluate it based on the 3 criteria that I gave. Honestly, is this a game that is worth making? Is it too similar to something that's out there, or does it do something fresh and new, or in a different way? The second is are there people? If this is a commercial thing, you could skip this one. If this is not a commercial thing, if it's an art game or something else, or a hobby game, that's fine. But otherwise, can you validate that there are people there who would be interested in this, that justify the budget that this game would take? And the third thing is, if you're solo, then it's you. But if not, if it's a team, is this the team that can make it realistically? Are there things here that are too risky, too much work? The scope is too large. You don't have a specific skill set that you're expecting to learn. Are just do that. Do that evaluation and see what you learn from it. And then write it down. When you finish the project, look back at it and see how close you were to the mark, and then do that for the next project. And you'll see, you'll get things wrong, you'll get things right. That's fine. This is a process, and you'll get better at picking better games, and at scoping and assessing your own skills, and being more honest with yourself and your team.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Osama, this has been a wonderful talk. It's been great meeting you and great chatting with you. I, I'm going to be paying attention. If I see your name again somewhere, I will absolutely be interested in seeing more.
Thank
Thank
you, and
you,
likewise.
everybody.
Thank you for having me. I'm a nightmare to send emails to back and forth. I apologize. My inbox is a mess. So thank you also for being patient while we sorted everything out. And thank you everyone in the chat who's been extremely thoughtful, and especially Petunio, who has been an amazing helper. Thank you so much for that. And Hamna, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I'll
All
jump
right,
now. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Go eat,
Thank
guys.
you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Over.
It played
Let's see
like
if I
the
can.
last 1 second of. It was like.
Game over.
There we go. All right.